Bonjour my friends. Elden Ring, Elden Ring, Elden Ring. We meet again, dear friend. It would seem you and I are fated to face each other. Indeed, once again we're going to talk about the latest entry of From Software, Elden Ring. I'm the Elegant Dandy, and you're watching Elegantly Explained, Marika and the Perfect Being. The connections between the Elden Ring game and alchemy is well known, and I talked about it in my very first video. Therefore, I won't bother you with what is the ancient art of alchemy. So, without further ado, equip your Golden Order Greatsword, pledge allegiance to the Elden Ring, and walk through the Golden Fog. We're seeing Marika and Radagon today. I believe that a bit of courtesy is of the order. So, let's start with Marika. Ladies first. But then, who is Marika? Eh bien, Marika is a woman of the Nomen. The Nomen are a race of people coming from the world outside the lands between. These people are seldom born and live a long, long life. Marika is one of them. Being an Empyrean, peoples worthy of godhood, she was bequeathed a shadow, Malekith, who will be important in a few seconds. As she became the vessel of the Elden Ring and achieved godhood, Marika took a consort, Horalu, who later became god-free and made him the first Elden Lord. Desiring a world free of death and death, Marika took it upon herself to remove the rune of death from the Elden Ring and made Malekith, her shadow, guard it. Wars after wars, Marika and her Golden Order, led by Godfrey, ruled the entire land between, and the Earth Tree reigned supreme over these lands. Together with Godfrey, Marika had 3 children. Godwyn the Golden, the fairest of all, and the twins, Morgoth and Mog. The later 2 were cursed omen and doomed to be hidden deep below the Earth Tree's capital. With her ruler sword, Marika decided that the time of belief in the greater will was a thing of the past and that they needed to find their own way. With that in mind, the first thing she did was to banish Godfrey and his men, rob them of their grace, and doom them to fight, wage war, and kill each other internally in the hopes that one day they will become even greater fighters. A thing that, in the case of Godfrey, must have been a tough thing to do as he was already a monster of power. However, and through her grace, they would come back after dying to fight again. This day she created the very first Tarnished. All of this, though, is nothing but context, and here is what we're actually interested in. Once she did this, she took a second consort, Radagon. Together they'll have 2 children, Melania, which I despise with all of my soul, and Michaela, about whom I don't really care. The 2 children were born cursed. Melania bore the curse of the Scarlet Rot, and Michaela the curse of eternal childhood. Truly, fate had something against Marika's children, but do not worry, I'll explain to you at the end of the second segment. Now, let's take a quick look at Radagon's achievement, shall we? Radagon used to be a champion of the Golden Order. Ever loyal to his beliefs, he led the golden armies of Leyndell to Leonia of the Lakes and waged war against Raya Lucaria. No matter how strong he was though, the 2 forces were a perfect match. Battles after battles, fights after fights, death after death, none of the 2 armies would come out victorious. And, after a second, fruitless war, Radagon renounced his ambitions of invasions and decided to marry the queen of the Carians, Renala of the Full Moon. Together, Renala and Radagon would have 3 children, General Radon, one of my favorite characters of the whole game, Praetor Ricard,
Together we will devour the very god.
and Rani of the Black Moon, which I really love. But as Marika banished Godfrey, Radagon was called to her side, and he had to leave the sides of a heartbroken Renala. As his final present, he only gave her an ember egg, Within it was hidden the great rune of rebirth. Truly, this man had no manner. And now we circle back to his children with Marika. Indeed, these two were cursed, and there was a reason for that curse, as their parent Marika and Radagon were none other than the same person. They were the two sides of the same coin. Marika was Radagon, and Radagon was Marika. And this is where we tie it up with alchemy. I suppose some of you are aware of the magnum opus, or great work. This is the ultimate goal of alchemy, and it involves the spiritual transformation, shedding of impurities, the joining of opposites, and the refinement of materials. Now, remember that alchemy is a highly complex and convoluted subject that a lot of people do not fully understand. I believe that even Plato did not. So, everything I'm going to say here will be highly up to debate. Bien. We've had enough of introduction to the concept. Now, let's get into it. Quick note, in Greek mythology, Hermes, the messenger, and Aphrodite, goddess of love, had a son, Hermaphroditus. He will later become the face of the concept of rebis. As born a male, he attracted the attention of a nymph who asked the god to unite her with her beloved in a way that they would never part. The result was Hermaphroditus, a being both male and female, boasting the breasts of a woman and the penis of a man. Our subject today is the rebis. It is the end product of what I've just talked about, the magnum opus. It is the result of someone or something that went through the three phases of nigredo, albedo, and rubedo, or blackening, whitening, and reddening. These three stages are thus: the blackening, or nigredo, consists of the decomposition and reduction of a subject. It breaks down the most complex of things to their most basic forms. It is death. White, or albedo, is the process of purification, leaving the alchemist with only the purest essence of his subject to work. These two processes may be repeated multiple times until the end result is satisfying. Once it is done, the two essences, or albedo and nigredo, are essentially reduced to the two opposites, usually represented as the Red King and the White Queen. Finally, the reddening, or rubedo, is when the true transformation beginneth. The revelations of blackening and whitening uncovered are now brought to reality, and an union of the opposite occurs, bringing forth the true, ultimate, and perfect being, one that is aware of its own harmony and born from this harmony, at perfect peace with itself. It is the spiritual hermaphrodite, usually depicted with two heads on top of a single body. It is the reconciliation of matter and spirit, the being both male and female. Now, and for the rest of the video, you will be faced with a depiction of the rebis. Note that the sun is on the male side, and the moon is on the female side. It is not a coincidence, as you probably know it, but the sun is associated with masculinity, and the moon with femininity. Oh, and remember the story about Hermes and Aphrodite? You know, Hermaphroditus. What are the names of its parents in Roman? Venus and Mercury. Mercury is the messenger of the gods, and he is the mediator. What is this symbol I see between the heads? Mercury. What a beautiful coincidence, don't you think? The god that talks, and the symbol of change and adaptability. Again, look at this image, and what do we note? The rebis sits on top of a sphere containing two forms. The square, first, square being the material and physical being, and a triangle, the triangle representing spiritualism. But what do you say we dig a bit more? I believe you are familiar with the concept of counting, 1, 2, 3, all those things. Now let's count all the angles. The square that represents matter and all terrestrial thing is composed of 4 angles, and the triangle, being of spiritualism, is formed of 3 angles. 3 plus 4 is 7, right? What is 7? If thine answer was a number, then thou art right, but also a bit too down to earth. The number 7 is the number of completion, the number of the 7 days of the week, the number of God. Now, what are these two forms contained in? Ah oui, évidemment. In a circle. The perfect shape according to Da Vinci. It is linked to divinity. Now we're getting closer to the end of this inspection. What are these two being holding? The male part holds a compass, a tool used with circles. It is held by the male to represent its connection to spiritual qualities. The female holds a square used to measure angles in squares and rectangles, representing its connection with the material world with which women are associated. And finally, the rebis is standing on top of a dragon. The dragon represents matter in its primordial form, as well as the third alchemical element, sulfur. The dragon represents the merging of material and spiritual, and its connection to sulfur can be linked to the green lion devouring the sun and purifying gold. Eh bien, I believe we said most of the things we had to say about this concept. I didn't go too much on details on the Red King and the White Queen, as I thought it would make the video way too long. Alchemy is a tough subject to talk about. On that, I'll bid you a goodbye, my friends. I wish to see you next time. Au revoir, à bientôt, and don't forget to praise the sun.